You know what time it is. It's that day of the week coming off a huge, huge Broncos win. Not only was I there in person, of course, Chris Harris Jr. was there along with the Super Bowl 50 teammates. We're going to get his thoughts on a big win and what it will take to keep this momentum going as the Dallas Cowboys come to town for the first time in 8 years. Football Fridays starts now. Chris, we are going to get to this game because it was as wild as we've seen. And I know you talked about it with Shelby and Ryan on Tuesday, but want to get your thoughts here for this audience. Before we get to that, though, there's a story that's even bigger, not just in the NFL, but I think the biggest story certainly in American sports right now is the news that we all woke up to Thursday morning that a guy that I know really well, I know that you know a little bit too, because he's such a huge Broncos fan, but Chauncey Billups caught up in a FBI investigation, years-long investigation, and was indicted and I mean arrested, indicted, and I guess arraigned in the part of a complex gambling operation coast to coast over several years. So before we kind of get into the details, we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. What were your initial thoughts when you see the headline?
Yeah. I'm definitely surprised it was Chauncey. Chauncey has been A plus citizen, just a guy off the field. His impact in Colorado is huge. I remember being at practice and being so excited to see Chauncey up there, at the facility. So he was just always kind of like that big bro around Denver. And just to see this happen with him, you could tell it's pretty serious, right? When we're talking about, technology enhancement to be able to cheat. Also, there's going to be a lot of victims that come out with this. This is a big story. Now you got the FBI in it. So you got to let things play out, and we got to let the judicial system play its way out. But it doesn't look good, man, when the FBI gets involved, and then you see it's happening a lot around the NBA lately, and they've been catching a lot of guys. It's not looking good for Chauncey, and you just wish him the best. So
Yeah, and I'll circle back to Chauncey, but I want to look at the Rozier piece because this is a guy making $26 million and was making good money a couple of years ago. I know I guess I don't know
doesn't
exactly
need
what
to
year he's
gamble.
on in his deal. Yeah, but his feels, I don't say more egregious because wrong is wrong. But when you talk about the integrity of the game versus scamming people, and we don't know Chauncey's level of involvement in that poker in terms of the
Right.
details that is in the 22-page indictment. I understand all that. But just we watch sports and we want everything to be on the up and up. We all do. So whether it's Michael Porter Jr.'s brother Jonte, who has been banned from the NBA, Malik Beasley being investigated and cleared, but he's not on a team, or Terry Rozier, who I'm not I'm not lying to you here. I put him on my fantasy team on Wednesday because I had a bunch of injuries. Like he's cleared to play in the opener. I'm like, great. I'll get some minutes out of Terry Rozier. So I put him in, and then he's not playing. I'm like, says he's cleared. Like I'm reading the thing, and then obviously Thursday we have an idea as to why he didn't play, and you have to think that
Yeah.
his NBA career is probably done. But for a guy making 26 million, and I understand because Michael Porter Jr. even on his podcast talked about this, that it's
Yeah.
easy to tell your friends, hey, bet this tonight because this is going to happen, or I'm not going to play as much, or I know what my number is, I'm going to go under. I guess how prevalent do you think it is, and how nervous would you be if you're an athlete? It's even told friends anything. The Damon Jones part of it is LeBron was injured, and he just let somebody know and then said, hey, make sure I eat on this too. So he took it a step further. But just as innocent
Yeah.
as, hey, this guy's banged up, or I'm not going to go tonight.
Well, you always have those conversations with whether it's family members or friends, and you're like, "Hey, I might not give it a go this week. I'm not feeling too good. I might set out this week." You might say it to your parents and stuff, and then no telling who they talk to. It can just get around, and so you have to be careful, especially with the gambling involved. Injuries come into play, and maybe minutes restrictions or whatever might come into play. But this whole thing is getting it's getting very serious. The NBA and the NFL, they wanted to include gambling into the game, right? They push it everywhere you see it. It's on all the networks, all social media, even on television, right? They're pushing gambling, so they're gonna have to find a way to get it under control. And I think right now what the FBI is doing is probably spooking a lot of guys. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of guys are going to start taking this a lot more serious. and be able to stay away, stay away from the gambling as much as possible.
Yeah, and we used to always think because you'd hear the stories about college basketball, especially since the '50s, that those guys weren't getting the money now that players are getting in college. I understand not everybody gets the Arch Manning money, the Shedeur Sanders money. We get that, but money is available when it never was before, certainly legally. And so, college aside, we talk about a guy making $26 million and he's letting whomever know, whether it's friends or otherwise, hey, take this on. It's just never going to be worth it.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that if I ever got a job in the NFL, my friends who we talk about gambling all the time, or we bet, make goofy bets together, whatever it is, they would respect my job, just like if you're a player. But that's where it gets tricky too. The information, like I have definitely look, I've talked to you when you were a player. Hey, what's going on? Oh, so and so's not playing. You're not expecting
Hmm.
to bet 10 grand on whatever the person that they were going to play against and say, oh, that person's going to now have a bigger day. We're just talking, right? And
Right.
that is human nature. And so, but I guess ultimately this probably will lead to more people hopefully having their guard up and not letting anybody like, hey, sorry, we can't talk about it. And I think their friends and
Yeah.
family respect that. I understand we all have fantasy teams. Hey, is so and so going to go? But in general, unless it is somebody that you trust so implicitly that they are, you know that they're going to just do it to switch out their fantasy receivers, that they aren't going to make a call to somebody, hey, lay 10 grand on this, lay 5 grand on that. But it hopefully, I guess, this becomes a scared straight moment, maybe more than some of these previous incidents have been.
Yeah. And they're gonna make it pretty hard on the media, right? Pretty soon, players are gonna get to the point to where it's yes or no answers, especially if it's about the game plan or injury. So, with all this going down, players aren't gonna want to talk too much, especially if we tell you something and boom, pretty soon, it's in a gambling circle or anything like that. So, it was something that coaches always they did bring it up when I was playing, right? Be careful what you say about injuries. Be careful if you're injured, talking about it. So they that's something that is spoke upon, but now it's getting even more serious. Now you can't even bring up game plan, uh, you know, rotations, anything like that of that nature anymore. It's gonna get out and it's gonna affect people's betting.
Yeah, well, and then when we're just doing our job and not even trying, I go back to last week with Garrett Bowles, and Sean was doing all he could to not tell us who the left guard was going to be. Now we know it's only a couple of players, and we know it's not a starter.
Yeah.
And then and then Garrett gets asked, "Hey, you're gonna have another left guard?" He's like, "Yep, Palcho's going to do great." You're like, "Well, okay." Looks like it's Palcho at left guard this week, and it turns out he did do so well. Sean Payton gave him a game ball. The final thing about the Chauncey piece, and I debated whether or not, because we saw so many people come to Mark Sanchez's defense when he had that incident in Indianapolis, and then the video comes out and you see all the details. You're like, did you really need to jump in and have his back? So I thought Troy Rank wrote a really good column, and I thought that Mark Kisler wrote a really good column. Troy in the Post, Mark in the Gazette. They've known Chauncey forever. Mark mentioned buying he and his high school teammates Wendy's when he was 15. And I've
Hmm.
known Chauncey for 20 years and know his family and know his brother, who's now an assistant with the Nuggets, used to be head coach at DU, and know all the great things they've done. And that can't be erased who Chauncey is. And as my wife likes to say, you can't be defined by your worst moment. I understand some of those worst moments are so bad. Will you say someone like OJ, for example, that it's hard to come back from stuff like that? But
Yeah.
you hope that as this plays out, Chauncey's responsibility in it isn't as great as it's being portrayed, and that he ultimately is exonerated. Does he ever coach again in the NBA? Does he ever work again in the NBA? Maybe not. Even though he wasn't doing what Rozier was doing necessarily, or what Michael Porter Jr.'s brother was doing, or any of that. I'm just saying, as someone who considers Chauncey a friend, I sent him a note. He just a quick appreciation back. I remember last year when the Broncos were kicking the crap out of the Chargers on Thursday night. They were playing the Nuggets that night. We did a big 4-hour watch along with Liv and Nate and Jesse and Megan, because the Avs, Nuggets, and Broncos were all playing on Thursday night. And they were starting at 8:30 Pacific. The game started at 5:30. I'm like, "Are you watching this game?" He's like, "Hell yeah," because he's sitting in his office watching the game. And whenever you see Chauncey, you want to talk Broncos. So I'm not only going to keep that in mind, I'm just going to let it all play out, and have no
Yeah.
problem saying publicly that I want to support him, and I hope that this turns out in his favor, where even if it means he's not the coach of the Blazers anymore, not working in the NBA, he's walking amongst us freely, understanding the mistake that he got caught up in, but doesn't serve time in prison and doesn't, go away, if you will. That's all. That's all
Hopefully,
I'll say on it.
hopefully Chauncey is like getting bullied into the situation,
Yeah. Yep.
because it is, they say the mafia is in it or the mob. So this is
Yeah.
very serious, and I think it said the five families of New York, didn't it?
Right. And a lot of us, I didn't realize, and I lived in New York 3 different times. It didn't feel as prominent as it once was. And I understand Sopranos glorified. And you talk to plenty of Italian Americans. I remember Vic Fangio saying he's never seen The Godfather, Goodfellas, any of it, because he thinks it can cast a negative light. Our pal Vic Lombardi said something similar on his radio show growing up in
Yeah,
North Denver, and obviously being born in Italy and knowing people in that world, said that TV and movies can glorify it, but they shouldn't be looked at as heroes or as the central figure in a positive light necessarily. And so, yeah, it should be taken seriously. I just didn't realize that the five families were still operating. And you look at it, maybe because of surveillance, they aren't taking stuff off the backs of trucks like they use or whatever. Maybe you're shaking people down, but they're running illegal poker rings.
right. It's
So,
it's very serious. It's a sad situation for Chauncey, and hopefully he's able to, clear his name with this situation. But like you said, Chauncey's a friend. Has great respect in Denver, great respect in the NBA. So hopefully, good thing it didn't have anything with sports betting.
yeah.
That's the good thing.
Yeah.
That's the good thing that comes out of this.
Yeah, and so, we talked about Chauncey's fanship as a Bronco. He's as big a Bronco fan as I know. You certainly are a Bronco through and through, and you were here with your Super Bowl 50 teammates. 170 former Broncos players were here last weekend. Let's look at we're going to look at some plays from that game here in just a minute, but just give me the overall vibe from the weekend, seeing some of your old teammates that I know you haven't seen or talked to in a while, and then to see the craziest fourth quarter we've ever seen.
It was great. The suite, we were all in the suite. They pretty much put us up in two different suites and pretty much made it one. So it was two suites in one. So it was great. Everybody we were down a little, the first three quarters, but when that fourth quarter hit, it was like a party in the suite. So it was just great to see everybody, teammates that I haven't seen in 10 years, and then be able to see their kids and then their wives now. It was amazing, man. It was great.
Do you look at the win and the way the fourth quarter played out as, oh, the Broncos figured it out and this is what their offense can do,
Yeah.
or the Giants blew it?
I see it as kind of, you have to go and take those games. You don't just let a downfall like that happen. I think the Broncos went out and took it. Bo got hot at the right time, had two nice runs and threw two nice touchdown passes. Yeah, people can look outside looking in and say the Giants, gave it away. But I see it as in the Broncos kind of went and took that game, right? Tightened up on defense, made enough plays to make the comeback. Cortland Sutton went up and made a nice, catch to get us in field goal range. So they went and took that, So a shout out to the Giants. They played a great game. Jackson Dart is getting better. Scottaboo's the dog. Brian Burns was the dog on that edge, but they just couldn't finish the game yet. They just don't know how to win as a team yet in those crucial moments.
Yeah, and you look at the decision, and we're going to see the play, the Sternad interception. I put that on Dayball as much as I put it on Jackson Dart, because if you just run the ball there or roll him out where his option is to just keep it or, throw it away. But if you run the ball there, that takes another 40 seconds off the clock. The Broncos are probably going to run out of time. And it
Right.
reminded me back to the Super Bowl, because you think about running out of time, 28-3, when the Falcons, if Kyle Shanahan just runs the ball, the Patriots
Yeah.
don't have enough time. Are you sitting there thinking like, why would they put that quarterback in that position? That's not on Dart. Yeah, it's a bad throw, tough
Yeah.
spot. But are you thinking that, man, I don't know how Dayball survives this unless they go on a crazy run?
Dayball will be able to survive if Jackson Dart continues to improve. Right. If he can continue to show that he's improving as a quarterback, he's a quarterback developer. If he can do that, then that can kind of save him his job. Because they know without Malik Neighbors, they need more weapons on the outside. They need a little bit more they need some more DEBs on the defensive side. So the Giants are still a work in progress. But I do like what I've seen from their team. Their pass rush is right there with the Broncos. The Broncos is definitely number one, but shoot, I'll put the Giants 2 or 3. So they have some promise. promises at some positions that they can build around Jackson Dart, but he definitely is going to need a little bit more weapons.
Yeah, you could feel the juice. Sean Payton talked about that. He said that he talked to John Merrill a while back and said, "I wish
Oh, we
that
got to
you."
talk about that.
Yeah, he said, "I wish that we had made the change. You'd made the change after you played us." Is that what Sean tried to tell us on Wednesday? That I was just because he mentioned the heat of the moment or whatever, the euphoria of the win. He said it wasn't a shot at Russ, and I guess you could say I would have rather seen Russ or even Jameis than the juice you're getting from the kid, which I can take him at his word, meaning that that's probably the intent. But no matter how you hear it as well. We would have rather seen Russ, who they missed last year
Yeah.
because he was banged up when the Steelers came to town. How did you hear it? Even though and Russ is normally quiet, Russ tweets about Bountygate 15 years later, and Sean's like, no, it wasn't about Russ. It was just about the kid.
It's definitely a shot at Russ. Him coming in there and changing, the situation and getting Russ up out of there. Didn't work out his first, 1 year with Russ. You can see the friction in their relationship, and Sean Payton was ready to move on. So he was so happy to move on that hey, they gave the guy $35 million and said send him on his way, right? So that's kind of where we can see where the relationship is with them too. And Sean Payton, that was a jab at Russell Wilson. If you're a player in this league, you're taking that as disrespectful. And Russ, you seen when he came back. He came back with the bounty gate. I think that's kind of like over now. It is what it is on the bounty gate. But he could have just said he could have tried to come back with something faster. Uh, a relevant comeback, Russ. But
Yeah.
it was definitely a shot at Russ, and Russ' career, he doesn't deserve that, especially over a rookie. But hey, coach said what is on his mind, and on his mind at this week is I didn't want to play Jackson Dart. I'd rather play Russell Wilson. And if I'm him, I agree. You can't. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with his statement, but how he said it to disregard Russ, definitely was a shot at him.
What's fun is in the press boxes, they're needing to go down and take the lead, where it turned out penalties got him about 70 yards. I thought if you were going to ever play Russ, this is Russ's time to shine. The comeback
Yeah.
and a deep shot would be where Russ has always excelled and made his bones. Now, you're not going to make that move there, but just thinking like, oh, let this guy let it take a rip. It wasn't going to happen. Okay, but looking at this
Yeah.
Broncos offense, because I want to play a couple pieces of sound from this week with the Broncos talking. They've shown flashes. Bo Nix has the best fourth quarter we've maybe ever seen. First guy to throw for two and run for two scores in the same quarter there in the fourth quarter. And Bo Nix was asked on Wednesday, because we know Wednesday is first and second down. He was asked, what does it take to get what you're trying to do on Wednesday to translate early on Sundays?
Well, we've been trying to do that. I think that's the most important part of practice, is to make it like a game. I think you got to work with the schedule and work with whatever practice flow you get, make it look like a game and make it intense and put pressure on yourself in a huddle and break in the huddle and on a play and get the urgency up and everything that goes into a game day and make it feel real. So we play with great effort at practice, and that carries over. But I think just how can we be more urgent, and how can we make the pressure go up in practice at all times? I think we've done a really good job of that sometimes, and then at other times we've let maybe other things get in the way. But we're excited about this week. I think everybody's got a little bit of an edge, wanting to play a little bit better.
How easy is that to
Yeah.
take what you do Wednesday to Sunday?
Oh, it's very hard. You want to be consistent in your practice and everybody disciplined on the game plan. And that first 15 should be your best 15 plays, right? No penalties, come out with very crisp tempo. Everybody knows the plays. We've been practicing these same 15 plays all week to how we're going to start out. Everybody sees the script. Broncos just haven't come out fast. They got to be able to come out fast versus this Cowboys team. This offense has been lining up all year, and it's hard to translate it on those Sundays. The only thing you can do is make sure you're prepared, make sure you know your game, the game plan, you know exactly what you're supposed to do, And if you can start out good on those first 15 plays, get Bo in a rhythm, that will help because Sean Payton's gonna have a great script on that first 15 play. His game plan is it should be good, right? He's always very tough coming out the gate. So it's just having that discipline and being able to bring it from Wednesday to the game.
Where do you come down on the idea that, not that Sean's overcoaching, but when your back's against the wall, you just kind of have to run the stuff that you know is going to work. You know where the down and distances are, and you're getting to your best stuff. In the 2-point conversions that we've seen in the last few weeks, let alone Sunday, they're running their stuff that works really well. I saw it in Philly, the out to Franklin, even though he had a big drop. Is Sean overcoaching? Because it feels like, to me, he's trying to treat Bo like Drew Brees in year 7, 8, 9. And Bo is more advanced than most second-year QBs, for sure. But he's still just in year 2. And Sean with 4 guys coming in and 4 guys coming out, 3 guys coming in. Even the running backs, where a couple weeks ago, this is Dobbins' set of downs. Now here comes Harvey. It's back to every other play. Is he almost trying to not that he's trying to overcoach, but that's what he ends up doing by just doing what he's always done, but he did it for a lot of years with Drew Brees at the height of his powers.
Yeah, I didn't like the play calling. I don't want to say it that mean. I didn't like the play calling, right? It was a lot of screens, a lot of bubbles, a lot of short throws. I wanted Bo to sit back in the pocket. Let's get some drop backs. Let's get down the field. Let's get some play action going. It was a lot of screens, a lot of quick passes. And I think I know why he was doing that. It's because that Giants pass rush, right? Being able to deal with Burns and, Carter, Lawrence. That's why. That's why it looked like that. Then second half, we were finally I think we were able to get those guys a little fatigued. Now we can open up the drop back passing game. What do I wish that we could do that a little bit earlier in the game? Yes, but I think he was a little bit scared of the Giants pass rush and their D line to wreck the game early. So he kind of stayed away from it and say, I'm going to play complementary defense. I'm going to rely on my defense to hold it down. The defense didn't play well. So now he has to open it up. And that's what I see Bo doing better in the drop back pass. He made plays at the end of the game and added some running plays, the quarterback design run plays. And that's what we need to stick with.
Yeah, and Cortland Sutton was asked something similar on Wednesday. He was talking about the personality of this offense. And I think you'll appreciate this knowing Court, because I don't know if we expected him to take it completely down this road. But here's Cortland Sutton when asked about the offense getting it going.
There's more work to be done, and we can't get comfortable. If you don't have the right guys in the right locker room atmosphere to be able to not allow guys to get comfortable, then you get full. It's just like a lion that's just got done eating. They're gonna go take a nap, and you don't want to be that lion that is eating and they over there under the trees, kicking it, minding their business. We still hunting. You got to have that mindset, and I think that that's something this team still has. This team has that hunger mindset. Like we've sat in the shadows long enough of almost there. It's like, hey, we're putting together some good games, but let's not forget where we were and where we're trying to get to. You got to keep that same mindset of being hungry.
Yes, sir.
Right,
I like it.
Yeah, when you hear him say that, that's got to at least get you excited.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to think about it, man. 5 years ago, we were still down bad. We finally broke over. The Broncos finally broke the 10-year drought of going to the playoffs. So Cortland felt all that. He's been through that. So he's going to make sure it's good to have a leader like him that's going to keep everybody accountable, make sure everybody's alert, make sure everybody's ready to go every week. Just because he's been through it, he's understands the low points of the NFL. And now that we're 5-2 as a team, and the Broncos are number 1 in the AFC West, and that you have to take advantage of that. You got to stay hungry. You got to be like them lions that are still hungry out there hunting, right? Like he said. So I love what Cortland's doing as a leader, and he's just got to keep it up, man.
Yeah, and you mentioned that play that he made to set up the game-winning field goal. They put that in on Saturday. And I understand teams do that a lot, but they said the first time that they ran it, that we saw it, was the first time they had run it. They did it in walkthrough, and I guess you were there Saturday. Did you see them putting it in? Did you notice when they were putting it in?
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Sean Payton has too many plays in his playbook not to have that play at wheel route for Cortland on the sideline. I'm pretty sure he probably has that play, but he probably inserted it in the game plan. Let's keep it like that. But it
Yeah,
was
and
huge.
yeah, there's a chance that they have seen it before. They weren't just drawing it up Saturday,
Yeah.
but that it hadn't been part of the game plan for the week. But it makes for a better
Yes.
story. Famously, going back to the playoffs when the Broncos were on the road to their first Super Bowl win, they're playing in Pittsburgh, and Mike Shanahan calls a play that they hadn't run since training camp. And it's basically for Sharpie to run down and get 7 yards on 3rd and 6 or whatever. And Elway likes to tell the story that they call the play, and Sharpie's like, it ain't in the game plan. It ain't in the game plan. And John's like, it's in the game plan now. Run the damn play. And so it wasn't that they made it up in the dirt on Saturday. You know, you guys are there, they're drawing it up on a chalkboard. It was that they just, it wasn't part of this week's game plan. But again, we can't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Fangio used to do that.
Oh, did he?
Like, we go into the game like, hey, bro, we ain't practiced this all week. And you just not calling.
That's where you need smart players. I mean, famously the Patriots, because Chad Brown's talked about it forever. They will rip up game plans on Saturday night. That's why for a long time, Belichick's squads had the most college graduates. I know that's a little thing, but it's like, okay, we have guys that can handle the classroom part of this, because on Saturday we've decided that this is going to work way differently, and we don't like what we've been doing for a couple of days. And so I think you have to have the right guys to do it. If not, everyone's just going to be lost.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't do it with every team. You got to have some smart individuals and the guys that can be able to, that know the whole entire playbook. You know, sometimes some coaches tell you, hey, these are the 25 plays that we got in the game plan, but the whole playbook's live. So when they say that, you just got to make sure that you know everything that's in the book from top to bottom, and know that he can call anything at any moment in the game.
All right, so we're gonna get to the film room in a second, but because the two last pieces of video and sound that we have are from VJ and Pat talking about Riley Moss. David, can we jump ahead and just show this play real quickly, and then we can really break it down? But just from a technique standpoint, the Riley Moss play, let's just look at it real fast, okay? And we don't have to stay on it. But I played corner growing up, certainly not to the level you did. I don't know how you could do this any differently as the player to roll into him. You tell me, and then we'll hear from Vance and Pat real quick.
Right there, man. You know, Moss is doing pretty solid. Scramble drill, right? We talked about this earlier, right? Moss can kind of get jumpy on the scramble drill, and he doesn't go on that upfield shoulder.
I understand there is a little bit of contact there, but he's not holding
Right
him,
there.
and that's obviously why they call it, because of where his left arm is, and I guess even as his right arm's there. But
That's why they called it. It's because his right arm. It's not because of him looking back. It's because when they see that right arm on that shoulder pad, they automatically believe that that's a hold, right? I didn't think he grabbed it. I think he just had it placed there, and then he turned around and was able to play the ball. So that's tough in those situations. The quarterback's outside the pocket too. He's trying to scramble and make that throw. And my advice to Riley would be is, before he turns upfield, as he's scrambling, try to push this guy out of bounds.
Yeah.
Right, as much as you can. Even though right there, I'm trying to push him out of bounds. And if you can get him out of bounds, then he's done. But that's
and
a
even
tough
if you push him there,
situation
it's
for a
5
corner.
yards. It's not 35 yards or whatever.
Yeah.
It ends up being just on the penalty. So, all right, now let's hear from both Vance and Pat. I asked VJ, how would you coach this, or would you coach this any differently? This is what I asked him, and here was his answer.
I wouldn't coach it any differently. I think the officials, they have a tough job. It's a tough job, and to make those plays and make those calls in the split second, that's tough to do. They have a extremely tough job. So I don't put it on those guys. I put it on us to correct it and play cleaner. And again, I think the penalty itself is such a huge consequence. It's a DPI penalty. It's a spot foul. So I think that makes it emotional, and that makes it tough on defenses. It's an incomplete pass. It's kind of gray. We're not sure if it's a foul or not, but it's a 50-yard play. So that makes it emotional and makes it tough. And that's the issue with it. If it was 15 yards, if it was 10 yards, it wouldn't be so emotional, but it is a spot foul, so that makes it hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
you
wish they
coach
would change
kids.
that rule.
Say that again.
I wish they would change that rule to, kind of like a illegal touching or, like 10 yards or whatever and give them a first down. 'Cause that spot foul does really change the game, man. It's a lot of hitting yards. And you can't really tell Moss in that situation to change his technique because we're taught to turn into the receiver, then look back. So only thing I could say to Moss is try not to extend that arm as much as turning into that receiver. That's hard not to do. People have been in that. It's hard. It's lonely being in that position with the ball in the air. And it's just you and him in an NFL game. So it's hard to tell him not to put that right arm up there because it could be back shoulder, right? It just depends on where the ball. But the underthrown balls have been killing the corners all the past 5 years of PIs and spot fouls. So I hate it because you see it every week. But hopefully, we can clean this up with the refs a little bit tight, a little bit better because these receivers push off a lot too.
Yeah, and it obviously even the team's third, fourth, fifth best receivers have been the best receivers where they've played most of their lives and know how to go get a
Yeah.
football even when they've got really good defenders covering them. And speaking of really good defenders, or final thing on this before we jump into the film room officially, PS2, the best corner in football, weighed in on Riley Moss a couple times at his charity event on Monday and then again Wednesday when he was on the podium.
It helps a lot. It's a lot of camaraderie that goes along with that. A lot of studying each other's game, understanding each other's game as well too. We give each other pointers as well. What we see throughout the game. Sometimes I ask him what he's seen on his side of the field, and sometimes I give him pointers. What I see on my side of the field. So, it's definitely a great thing to have that. Over the course of the past few years. So, we always looking to get better each and every week, and me and Riley, it seemed like each and every week we just keep on getting better and better. So it feels good knowing that I got a corner on the opposite side. That has the same work ethic and also has the same mindset.
And that question was, what's it like having the same guy now year over year? Because he's had a couple different corners, but they do know you had it with Talib, obviously, and Roby. You had it with Champ early in your career, but having consistency, it really at any spot, but knowing how they're going to play has to be a huge bonus. And one other thing that I don't think people realize, but we've seen the numbers from Next Gen Stats. Riley, I think, has the best numbers in the league at 39% of passes caught on him. It's just that so many more balls are thrown his way because he plays opposite of Pat. But if you were going to give him a grade right now, and you hear that from Pat, what do you think of Riley through 7 weeks?
I'll give Riley a B plus. He's definitely been solid. The only reason why I give him a B plus is, I think he gave away got a couple touchdowns. He gave up a couple touchdowns and some major PIs. But other than that, he's been solid. He's been a fighter out there, very aggressive. His playing the ball down the field has improved. His run defense has improved. I mean, this guy, Riley used to kill me. I used to not even get mad at his coverage. I used to get mad at his run defense. And now just to see him improve on that, his tackling has improved. I like the way he's playing. So him and PS2 have a nice duo in the league, and hopefully they can keep it going. The safeties back there with the safeties, that's a major improvement. And you got to have that camaraderie. You got to have some consistency with you out there on the field so you can play your game. So I know PS2, it probably makes him play even better.
Well, and I'm curious real quick before we jump in the film room, did you have any conversations with Pat, with Riley? Do you have Riley's number? Are you texting him or will you start? Does he want the extra coaching from you as coaches? How'd it go in your interaction with him Saturday or Sunday?
Oh man, we didn't even have time to interact with the guys. It was just a quick talk and just saying, just go out, keep going out there and competing, man. Keep going and fighting. There was so many people there on our team. It was hard to interact even with those guys, But Moss definitely, if he ever needs help, I'm for sure here to help him. And J Mac or any of those guys, Baron, especially playing the nickel, trying to learn the inside of the game. Definitely some plays I can definitely help them with. But these guys are still young, fairly young guys. in the NFL. Moss is still young, at the corner position. And those guys are going to just continue to get better.
All right. Well, now without further ado, let's do it like we do every week. I know it's a lot of people's favorite part of the show. Let's jump in the film room.
Yes.
Okay, let's start with maybe the worst defensive play of the entire day, and it happened early, and it was a
Yes.
bit, I think maybe even a bit perplexing. But you can take us through this play, the first score of the game, and how many people are at fault.
Yeah, it looks like we're playing the cover 3, right? And they got us with a play action, and he was able to just step up and make a good throw. In these situations right here, Coach Vance Joseph is doing kind of what we did with Wade Phillips, right? Kind of a similar system. They put corners over, right? If you go back, if we can pause it, you can see Riley Moss on the right side, right? You see him on the right side playing
Yep.
a zone drop. So what we try to do is we would put me and Talib would come over and make it look like man,
Okay.
right? But still play cover 3. So that's what they're doing. But what this does is it turns my backside safety to the corner. Who's up top
Okay.
of my left corner? That's Jones, right?
I think it might be PS2 because Jones is all the way over, maybe in the nickel to start. I think PS2 is on the backside, right there
No,
at the
PS2 is
25.
right here. No, PS2 is on the right. He's at the right corner, right? He's at
Yeah,
the
but
right
I'm saying,
corner in the
so
field.
yeah. So who's that at the 25 by themselves on the
At the
hash?
very top, that's the safety. That's Jones.
Are we sure?
Right,
Play
Jones.
it out. I think that's
Yeah.
Pat.
Now Pat's at right corner down here. He's
Okay.
at the bottom.
Oh, so there's Pat. All right. So then that is Jones kind of running around.
Yeah.
It feels like it's mostly on Jones and Hafanga, right?
It's definitely on Jones and Ofanga, right? Now you got safeties playing. Now you have the safety. He needs to be playing in the middle of the field. And Jones, now you turn to a cover 3 corner. You got to
Well, there.
midpoint and be on top of that.
So
So Jones
that
is
is
just
Pat.
Pat's
Right
at
there.
the
There's
bottom.
Pat. Yeah, right. Pat's at the bottom, Hafanga and the third. So Jones is your strong because they're interchangeable in this instance, right? So Hafanga
Right.
is the one that's middle of the field and deep. But so is Riley also supposed to be in that third?
Oh, Riley's buzzing. He turns to a nickel, right?
Okay.
Because his corner's over. So Pat is playing right corner, number 17.
Yeah.
B. Jones turns to the left corner.
Right.
Now,
Okay. So he becomes the left corner. So that's
he
Jones.
has to get deep. He's not deep
Gotcha.
enough. He's playing the wheel route. That wheel route goes to the backers and things. He needs to be on top of this route, and Hufanga needs to be sitting deeper. So those
Okay.
two, I would say the safeties. This is on the safeties. It made it look like it's on the linebacker, but it's not on Singleton.
Yeah. Right. We know Singleton certainly has had his fair share of MEs, if you will, mental errors. But when you hear him say MEs, that was again, I think their biggest bust of the day. And it's one thing when they make a play, when you're overly aggressive, like you've talked about, they're going to give up some big plays. That wasn't overly aggressive. That was just kind of misalignment, huh?
That was just guys playing new positions other than Hufanga. Hufanga's usually plays down low. Well, actually, he's playing a new position, kind of, because he usually plays down low. Now we got him to play the middle, right? What does he do? He's aggressive. He comes out the middle. And then Jones, he hasn't played corner, ever. Now he has to play corner in this type of formation, and he has to learn how to play 2-to-1 corner as a cover 3 guy. And not understanding, you have a nub formation like that, they always throw the seam. That's the number one throw, right? So that's just new guys playing new spots, and that's what happens. We get a busted coverage and touchdown.
You know the lineage. I mean, you saw all the banners up when you were in the Pat Bowlen Fieldhouse the other day. The Broncos have a long line of Hall of Fame safeties, but he's not going to end up in the Hall of Fame. He might be in the Ring of Fame. I'll put Justin Simmons' center field ability up against any of those guys, Atwater, B-Dog, John Lynch, Justin handled that part of his job. And look, you played with two great safeties in Stu and TJ, but would you agree that Justin's center field ability was maybe his best skill?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just his range going sideline to sideline. Justin had great ball skills, and, that's what – and then he could jump up and go get it. He could jump up and go get it. So, Justin definitely – I put him up there for sure. Earl Thomas, those guys that can go sideline to sideline in that middle of the field. So, but, Hufanga can do that, but, he's more of a down backer, more of a coverage backer. You rarely see that guy in the middle of the field. And, they switched him and Jones, and we see what happens.
Yeah, without even knowing it, and we do know the backstory, you could say to Fonga, who's the one player you play like that turns out is a really good friend and mentor of his, but who does he remind you of the second you see him?
Probably TJ.
Oh, you're saying TJ. I would say Palomalu, only
Palomalu,
because
TJ.
yeah, they play the same. But yeah, I mean, Palomalu's like his mentor, and obviously they both have the Pacific Island
He plays like
heritage.
him.
West Coast. He plays just like him. You got and then it has the long hair too. All right, let's jump to these other couple plays real quick before we get out of the film room. So this one, what can you do differently other than, I guess, secure the ball or knock it?
Okay, right here, this is one hole. This is a man, right? We just got to be able to knock it down, and sometimes you get lucky in the NFL, right? Hufanga, this guy has awareness, right? He's not doing his job. He's going to try to make a play, right? Hufanga has the back, right? But he's saying, forget the back. I'm going to try to go get the ball. And right there, we got to try to get him down by 23. That's the best thing we do. We got 5 yards to get him down. He went up high, and you can't go up high on these big guys, Rook. You got to be able to hit them low. Push them out of bounds, right? You go high, they're big, they're strong, they're gonna knock you down. So that would be my only thing right there. They got lucky play by the Giants, but just try to get them down, Rook, and try to get us to 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2, and try to get a stop.
That does come on the heels of the Troy Franklin deflection. So like we got one. They got one back. You don't have to like it, but you're like, hey, you can't celebrate ours. And then you understand the football guys are keeping that one even at least. That was the moment when my wife and kiddo left. When it was 26-8. Like, we're going to beat traffic. And then I had to text her. I'm like, are you listening to this game? And she's like, no. I'm like, put on the damn radio. And it was right before the Broncos went back up. So then I think I might have texted her after this next play. Why does this play work so well here as Justin Strnad becomes one of the defensive heroes on the day?
It's an all-out blitz, right? Zero. And we used to say if the linemen look at you, if they come to you, pop out with the linebacker. So they came to Strnad, he popped out. See, everybody else is in zero coverage. And that was just a great play. If the line comes to you, pop out, play the hole. You're not counting on him being there as a corner, right? Hufanga's not counting on him being there. Pat cannot count on him being there, right? That's a read off the blocking off the Giants, right? If they block towards Greenlaw, if they block towards the other backer or Singleton, then Singleton will pop, right? So it's an adjustment we kind of do on the run for you listeners learning defense. So seeing how that worked, that's why we run it. That's why we do that pop, because we know it's coming out fast. Teams like to throw under, and that's how you get those interceptions. So great read by Strnad. Great job of following the game plan and being able to read the O-lineman, read the eyes, and being able to go make a play. Man, I wish he could have kind of, broke up the inside and scored, man.
Yeah. No, when he first got his hands on, I'm like, oh, he's going to score. And then you realize how much traffic there was. But yeah, maybe he gets in there. He's just having to dodge a lineman or two on the inside. Maybe he picks up a block. When you talk about value, and I know you were on the all value team at various points early in your career as an undrafted guy. Yeah. Strnad, who they get to come back mostly for special teams, but also when you got guys with injury histories like Alex Singleton and Dre Greenlaw, to get him for another 1-year deal under $2 million, as much as he's had to play with Greenlaw's quad injury, now with this week a suspension coming up, I think he might be the very best value on the team, other than you talk about a rookie QB and what that means for your salary cap. But I'd be hard pressed. I know that he hasn't been lights out every play, and we know that backers in coverage, although it's been Alex a little more on those backs. I think Strnad's been as valuable as anyone, as much of a value as anyone.
I mean, best value, you'd probably have to give it to J-Mac or Strnad for sure.
Yeah.
If you talk about production with pay, right? You might have to go give it to J-Mac. Awesome.
Yeah.
When it comes to that situation. But, okay, baby, hold on. I got the little mama over here.
Oh, yeah. She wants to hang with Dad. Just another minute or two.
Yeah. But when you see the value of what he's doing, being able to play special teams, being able to cover, play the run, that keeps you on the team, right? And being a third linebacker, that's okay being in that role. You're going to keep a job, right? So Strnad, he's doing his role. He's doing his job. And, of course, they paid Greenlaw to come in there. So he kind of understood that's what he was going to do this year. And he's taking advantage of it.
All right, do we want to look at the Moss play one more time just to see? It's our final play in the film room. I know we obviously covered it before we heard those sound bites, but situationally, again, I don't know what you can do differently other than, like you said, stay away from that up shoulder.
Yeah, keep that arm away. You know, he didn't grab it. And we got to stop rewarding these quarterbacks for bad throws, right? The ball is clearly underthrown. Um, and you know, those plays have been killing the corners around the league. Those underthrown PIs, spot foul, like you said. Now he's automatically on the one, the two,
Yeah.
right? Let's just even if that is, or say if it's incidental contact down the field, right? Let's give him 10 yards or 15-yard penalty, first down. But this spot foul right here is just it seems very unfair.
I know how you would come down on this, and very rarely do we yield to college over the pros, although a lot of times we like college. I liked college overtime more than the pros for a long time. They've actually made it worse by making them jump into 2 points that early. But where college gets it right is that PI is 15 yards no matter what. And it's not a spot foul, because you talk about punitive. I understand some are more egregious. If you want to add a personal foul to it, I think I'm okay with that on a PI that has a face mask or has someone totally destroying a guy. And if that becomes like the add-on and that's an extra 15, but I think I'll be curious to see if there starts to be any kind of momentum for let's make PI 15 yards no matter what, or half the distance if you're inside the 20 or whatever, so that it's not so big of an advantage for the offensive players.
Just bailing out the offense and bailing out bad quarterbacks. You throw a bad throw, and now you get rewarded with a spot foul, 50 yards, because you threw it bad. You know, I hate that. So I hope we do apply the college games rule, the 15-yard penalty. You know, that rule is huge. You know, so be able to, especially now with the game now, DBs don't have anything. Give us something on the defensive side of the ball. That's all we ask for. Just one thing. We just want one thing. Let's change PIs to 15 yards, and I'm pretty sure all the DBs would be happy with that.
Yeah, I think you're right. So maybe it's a question worth asking. Maybe I'll ask Sean Payton when I talk to him here later today. Let's look at the Cowboys, and before we do that, I guess we'll exit the film room. And all right, so as we look at the Cowboys, before we go behind enemy lines, and I'm going to let you run. You're there in Lawrence, checking out our Jayhawks against their bitter rivals in Kansas State tomorrow.
Yes,
But the Cowboys, look, you live in Dallas, and I know you're obviously in Denver plenty and watch every Broncos game, but you're surrounded by Cowboys fans. And so our trip behind enemy lines with Brad Sham that I recorded earlier, you know, we talked about expectations. What's the sense down there? Because they've got the best offense in football. When we look at these numbers, and I guess, David, we could throw these up real quick. So when this is from the Broncos weekly press release, green means really good. The dark blue is neutral. Red means bad. That Cowboys offense, which you see there underneath their logo, that's a whole lot of green. And not only is it green, that means you're in the top half or top 10. It's first in points or first in yards per play, second in points per game. Second in passing with Dak and company. They're okay on third down, seventh, they're ninth, but they are in the green all over the place. And then the Broncos strength, obviously on the left side, even with 32 points, still third, second, ninth, sixth. We know they haven't taken the ball away. And then first in sacks, third down in red zone. Those are big stats to be first in. This is strength on strength. But how surprised are people in Big D by what Brian Schottenheimer in year one's been able to do so far with the offense?
I mean, everybody's hyped on Dak. You know, it's a Dak Prescott world down here in D-Town, you know. Him playing at an MVP level, putting up numbers, his swag that he's bringing in with the team, you know, this defense is ferocious, right? And when you look at their secondary, they can't cover anybody. They look lost in his zone defense. Zone cover 3 defense they're trying to run. What's the coach's name? I always mess it up. Eberflus? Is that his name?
Matt Eberflus, the old Bears coach. Yeah, Matt Eberflus.
Yes, right. Cover three system, right? That's what they run. Zone system. And the Cowboys guys have been playing man. They have been cover 1, bringing pressure, playing aggressive style football until this season. It doesn't fit Bland. It doesn't fit Diggs. So we got to take advantage of that. We got to throw the ball all over the field. This should be a come out game for Bo. Bo has to throw the ball. We can't come out playing, what's it called, scary football where we're not dropping back. This secondary can be had, and Bo has to, come out play aggressive on offense.
Yeah, David, throw those numbers up again real quick because we looked at the green. Let's look at that Cowboys defense. That is nothing but red, and not only is it red, dead last in yards per game, 30th in yards per play, 30th in points per game, 30th in rushing, 32nd in passing. They're not taking the ball away either. They're the worst third down defense in the league, which means you can stay on the field, and they're one of the worst red zone defenses, which means you're not only going to kick field goals, you're going to score touchdowns. So it's funny because we look at strength versus strength and know that their offense is going to be able to still put up some points. They're not going to come out here and score 9 points, but they may not score 30 because of what the Broncos defense can do. And mostly because the Broncos offense, if they can just stay on the field, will limit what the Cowboys offense can do because that Cowboys defense. And I get that they don't have Overshown right now. And Diggs is dealing with the mysterious concussion suffered at home. We don't know the details of that. And Bland's been banged up, and other guys, their safety's been banged up. But this is a get-right game for this Broncos offense.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And this is a huge game, especially even for the Cowboys offense, right? They want to prove that they're a top-flight offense going against the top defense. And the same thing with Denver defense, right? This is the first real deal quarterback y'all seen, right? MVP caliber quarterback this season. Let's go out there and send out a message that, hey, we're the real deal on defense. And, we can stop this passing game, and we're going to bring heat to Dak Prescott. So they can really shut out a lot of doubters this game, and especially going against a top flight quarterback. Did I go out?
No, you're good. You're there, and so we're good. So let's quickly we'll jump to the injury report, and then I'll get your predictions. So let's see, because as we get to it here, I think we have our injury report. Bell and Pollock injury report. Good time to be a Broncos fan in terms of injuries. Yesterday, Greenlaw's out, but that's not an injury this time. It's a suspension. Jonah Ellis coming back from the shoulder. That's it. I'm done with the injury report. Cowboys, on the other hand, have 14 guys on there. But when you can go into a game and it's just a backup pass rusher who we know is a good player and part of that rotation, but not even one of your top two guys, in week 8, knowing that you still have a bye week coming, you got a Thursday night game coming, again, knock on wood, don't know how it's going to turn out. Got plenty of football left, but you can't be much healthier. You got a left guard, 2 left guards on the shelf right now. You got to feel pretty good if you're the Broncos at how healthy they are.
Broncos are doing great health-wise. I think we're just losing Powers. Greenlaw hasn't been able to stay on the field yet. Other than that, they've been fairly healthy. That's pretty good in the NFL, especially at this midway point, almost the midway point. The Cowboys have a lot of guys dinged up, especially on defense, and that, they can't afford anybody being out, especially on the defensive side of the ball, especially on the D-line, being middle of the pack and pass rush, not able to create enough pressure even with their starters. So it's definitely a favor. The injuries definitely favor the Broncos this week.
Yeah, and so, again, as we do every week, we thank our friends at Bell and Pollock. You can give them a call, 303-795-5900 or championsofthepeople.com. But it's nice. You don't have to call them, and you don't have to have a long injury report. So hopefully we have 8 or 9 more of these injury reports, but that's been your Bell and Pollock injury report. All right, let's get to predictions, and then I'll let you run and take the trip behind enemy lines with longtime voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham, who I was able to talk with earlier this morning. You're there in Lawrence. Let's start in college football. I looked up KU K-State's line, and it was Kansas minus 16, and it said over under 139, and I'm like, 139? I realized I was looking up a basketball line from last basketball season. But our favorite college team, where you were a star on the Orange Bowl team as a freshman and a legend there in Lawrence. Is your name retired? Are you in the Ring of Fame?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I just haven't been back to the old stadium, let alone the new one. I'll be there next week for a basketball game. But our Jayhawks favored by 3.5 against our hated rival, K-State. We already lost one game where we were winning against another hated rival in Columbia against Missouri. You're going to be there. Are a bunch of your teammates back? I can't imagine it's just you. What's the weekend going to be?
Oh yeah. A couple of my guys, couple guy Bradley McDougal. We play in the NFL together. He's my
Sure.
guy. He's gonna be here. It's just when we play K State, play Missouri, we got to win those games, right? So, Coach Leipold we dropped one so far this year. We got to win this game, right? This game is huge, especially in the Big 12 being still wide open, right? Cincinnati's playing pretty good. Arizona State just knocked off Texas Tech. Texas Tech is playing pretty good, so it's still open for the Jayhawks. So we got to have this game for sure.
Yeah, if they want to find a way where the math will work out, they sneak into Jerry World for that Big 12 title game. They're going to need to get a win tomorrow. So over under is 56. Just give me a final score. How much do our Jayhawks win by?
I'm gonna go 30-23.
All right.
I'm gonna win by 7.
I don't have anything to add to it, so I'll go with you. 30-20. I'll go 30-24 just to make it fun. The NFL doesn't have too many awesome matchups this week, and we're like, oh, I've got to see these games. Colts, Titans, crappy, Saints, Bucks, whatever. Patriots, Browns is interesting because of Shelby and the Browns defense. Falcons, Dolphins, like, what are the Dolphins doing? Like, there's storylines, but you're not like, oh, I've got to tune in to watch these games. Ravens, we think Lamar's coming back against the Bears. So we've kind of got the game of the day here in Denver. Chiefs, Commanders Monday night. Oh, and Steelers, Packers. So let's do those two before we do Broncos. So Steelers, Packers is a I think that's a Sunday night game in Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers against Jordan Love. Aaron it's not the same animosity that there was with when Brett Favre left. I understand he'll want to beat some people. Jordan Love has talked about Aaron as his mentor. They still talk all the time. So it's not the same as, and Brett and I think Aaron get along fine, but it's clearly friendlier. Nonetheless, the Steelers want to get back on track. How do you see that one shaking out where the Packers are actually 3-point favorites in Pittsburgh?
I got the Steelers winning this game. I think they're going to bounce back defensively. I think they match up pretty good versus the Packers offense. I think if they can stop the run against Jacobs, they got a chance to knock off Green Bay, So I'm going to go, let's go 28-21. 28-21 Steelers.
I like the Steelers. I think they cover. I always like good teams that end up being home underdogs, and I think the Steelers aren't a bad team. They're a great team. So I'm with you. I like the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers at home. And then the other game that I mentioned, Chiefs and Commanders, we obviously, with the quarterback and Jayden Daniels banged up and Marcus Mariota having to come in, Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites there at Arrowhead. That's your Monday night game, though. We know the Chiefs are on the horizon for the Broncos in a few weeks. Anyway, the Commanders come in and shock the world?
No, I got the Chiefs. They're playing good football now. They got all their receivers back. Chiefs are fairly healthy right now. I don't think Jayden Daniels can go on the road into Arrowhead and get a win. I don't think he can pull it off. Not right now.
I'm there with you. And then so the Broncos is a tricky number, despite giving up 32 the other day and only winning by a point against the Giants team that is still trying to figure themselves out. They are 3.5-point favorites at home. One of the highest over-under of the week, one of the highest of the year. They think even with a good Broncos defense, 50.5 is the over-under, almost 51 points. Does Dak come in and show his own mile-high magic? Do the Broncos get right because of how bad the Cowboys defense is? How does this game shake out at Empower Field at Mile High Sunday?
Dak's going to definitely put up some points. Their offense is too efficient. I give them 21. You don't never want to say that with the Broncos defense and how well they played so far, but I'll have to go out. I'll give Dak 28. Let's say Broncos 31-28.
So 31-28, which is where Vegas thinks it might go too, and that's why it's barely hitting that over under. But the Cowboys covering and a Broncos win. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the Broncos are 1 to 3 points better. I'm not sure they're beyond that. Obviously, we know things can happen in a game, but yeah. So we're on.
You got to take that Cowboys bet. If we're gambling, we probably have to take the Cowboys bet.
Yeah, I think so to cover at least, not to cover. All right. Well, we've done plenty here. I'm going to go behind enemy lines here with Brad Chamboy to the Cowboys. You've got your girls ready to go hang out on Mass Street and buy a bunch of Jayhawks gear and go over to the football stadium and maybe hit up
everything.
A sleeping sandwich, get that bread bowl there at Quentin's. I'm jealous that you're there now. I'm glad I'm going to be there.
Pepper Jacks, man. You got to go to Pepper Jacks when you come to Lawrence. Get
All
the
right,
Philly
yeah, hit up Pepper
cheesesteak.
Jacks.
Come on.
Hit up Pepper Jacks as well and get a cheesesteak. Everyone knows Lawrence is famous for our cheesesteaks. Take that, Philadelphia. All right, Chris, I'll catch you next week.
All right, my
We're going to
man.
jump behind enemy lines. Thanks. That's, of course, Chris Harris here, obviously on Football Fridays. And then let's do this now. Let's go behind enemy lines with the longtime voice of the Cowboys, who I've known almost my whole life. And certainly you'll hear in the start of this chat, someone that I consider a mentor and a friend, but he's been calling the game since 1976. Here, as we go behind enemy lines with Brad Sham, voice of the Cowboys. Now's the time on Football Fridays where we go behind enemy lines. Chris unable to join me for this part of the chat, but it's always a pleasure when I get to talk to our next guest, and that's the voice of the Cowboys since the mid-'70s, Brad Sham, who's a big reason why I wanted to get into this business since I was a kid.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, no, I don't. Well, apologize to maybe some of my coworkers, but it's been a good run so far. You know, I still, just like you've been doing it longer than me, but we get to play in the toy aisle, Brad. So I'm not going to complain. And I know you every Sunday getting to sit up there and call Cowboys games, even though they haven't always been as fun as the rides in the 70s to the Super Bowls or the 90s to the Super Bowls. It still beats working for a living.
Results are never guaranteed. You and I have both been to literally thousands of sporting events in our lives. And back when they actually made ticket stubs, you had paper tickets, and you can still find language, even I think if you use a QR code, when it tells you about what's expected of you and what you're entitled to as a ticket holder and what your behavior has to be. And never been one printed that guaranteed the result. And that's because it's a game. And if your satisfaction with the experience, whether you listen to it, watch it in person, or watch it on television, if your satisfaction is tied exclusively to result, that's your fault, because it's never guaranteed. And you can't control it. The idea is for you to enjoy it and have fun. And I'm a passionate fan about some teams too. I understand that you're irritated and angry when your team doesn't do well, especially if you think they're just not playing smart or they're not doing their best. But the results are never guaranteed. So I enjoy every game I do.
Yeah, and I can certainly appreciate that. You know, last week at the game here in Denver, as the Broncos are playing the Giants, I have longtime Broncos legendary PR guy Jim Saccomano, who the press box is named after, sitting directly behind me, and Drew Goodman, voice of the Rockies on TV, who I think told us he did 155 games this year. I want to say they've lost 500 games in the last 5 seasons is how it went, and Drew's had to call almost all of them, and is a lifelong Giants fan.
No, Drew hasn't had to call all of them. Drew gets to call all of them.
Sure.
And if you ask Drew, if you haven't already, I will promise you, he'll tell you that a day at the ballpark with the Rockies when they are struggling is better than anything else he can think of to do for work.
No, you're 100% right. And you talk about expectations. And with this Cowboys team sitting at 3-3-1, I didn't know what to make of Brian Schottenheimer. He's obviously a name we've known forever. I remember him as a high school quarterback in Kansas City because I had family in Kansas City, which is part of the reason I went to KU. And he's obviously coached a long time, hadn't necessarily called plays. We know about the legendary defensive coach that his dad was. But after moving on from Mike McCarthy, you thought, is this the most inspired choice? I get he's the head coach of the entire team. I don't think I expected this offense to click as well as it has. And for them to really be where they are, it feels like a wide open division with what the Eagles' struggles are or potentially are, and the Cowboys' offense being so good. And look, he didn't trade Micah Parsons. But I guess let's start with Schottenheimer, though. How impressed are you just through 7 games with what you've seen from him in his first head coaching opportunity on, the biggest sports brand in America, if not the world?
I would say going back before the start of the season, even, Brandon, going back to when they hired him. I mean, he's been on the staff here for 3 years, so we all knew him. And don't make it sound like he's never called plays. He called plays for several years for both the Seahawks and the Jets. So he's evolved like most coaches do, most players do, most people do. And his philosophies about some things, including offense and play calling, would be very different than what his dad's were. And he makes no bones about how much he was shaped and influenced by his father. But I think he's done a really good job. The offense, which he is calling, he has made it a collaborative effort with a new offensive coordinator, Clayton Adams, who's been the offensive line coach in Arizona for the last couple of years with the Cardinals. Many new coaches. The offensive line coach, Connor Riley, was the offensive line coach at Kansas State. And he's got some coaches on his staff who have not been in pro football before or in a while, but they've really blended together. There was a palpable atmospheric difference between him and McCarthy from day one. Mike, by the end of his tenure, really didn't want to be the head coach of the Cowboys. I think that was from about maybe the second or third year that he was here. Look, it's different being the head coach of the Cowboys than it is many other teams, most other teams. There are things that go with it that other teams don't have going on. And that doesn't mean you can't succeed. It means you have to embrace them, not fight them. And he has done that, and he has gotten his players to buy into the way that he wants to play. He doesn't have enough good players, especially on defense. But I think the offense, the thing that has most impressed me about the offense is, and Mike's teams went 12-5 3 years in a row, made the playoffs 3 years in a row. Those two things had not been done here in 30 years. And then last year they had everybody here. They got 4 defensive ends hurt all at once. Then the quarterback got hurt. Then the whole secondary got hurt. And the fact they won 7 games was probably a testimony to McCarthy doing a good job. But there's a palpable atmospheric difference. And from an offensive standpoint, Mike's offenses, even thrown out last year with the injuries, they struggled the first quarter to half of the year, certainly the first quarter of the year. And then they would get a bye, or they would do a lot of deep navel gazing, and they would get something fixed. Mike talked about wanting to run the ball, but he was never really committed to it. Schottenheimer has been different than that. His offense has clicked just about since day one. I think it's partly because the quarterback wanted him to get the job, because he was the offensive coordinator for the last 2 years, even though McCarthy was calling the plays. And so he's got a vision for how he wants the play style, as they like to say, to be, for how he wants the running game to be joined with the passing game. And the offense has good players, and they've clicked, and they can be better, and they have to be better. He doesn't have enough good players on defense. That is his biggest problem, and that's not just because they traded Micah Parsons. Because if they hadn't traded Parsons, they'd have had other problems. There was reasons that they traded Micah, who is a great player. I'm not sure I would have traded him, but he's a great player and was traded for a reason. And their personality has evolved, and it's going to change some more. I don't know how much is going to happen this week, but over the last when they get out of their bye in 2 weeks, then they're going to get some players back, and they're going to have evolved with the defense, and they'll be a much better team in the second half of the year. They still won't have enough good players, but I think Schottenheimer's done just about all you could ask of him to do so far.
Yeah, and look, when you're the best offense in football statistically, and they are in terms of scoring points, everyone saw them on Sunday night against Micah Parsons in a 40-40 tie, which was obviously, I'm sure you've called a lot of games. We saw a crazy fourth quarter here the other day. That's got to be high on the list of wild, the wilder games that you've called, and certainly in recent memory, I have to think. But the offense is scoring points. You mentioned the quarterback wanting Brian Schottenheimer to get the job, the commitment to the run. It's funny because it's easy to look at Dak and see how he's playing. I don't want to get to that. And of course, what those wideouts can do. But we certainly know Javonte Williams around here, and saw when George Payton traded up to go get him in the second round, saw what we thought he would be in that second year, where he's one of the top fantasy running backs. And then in week 4 against the Raiders there in Vegas, see his knee get shredded, and he just never got back to that. And last year with Sean Payton, he was mostly just a check down target, and I think was second on the team in catches, but he's second in the league in rushing. And yesterday when I asked Vance Joseph about trying to stop those wide receivers. You said what makes them even tougher is that they're so good running the ball in 11 personnel. And that's because of obviously that O-line where it seems like everybody's named Tyler. I don't know if you ever had a O-line where three of the five guys have the same first name, but because Javonte Williams has been so effective, did you expect to see that? And is it strange seeing a tailback wearing 33 about that size? That is, I get he's a little stockier than TD, but the first TD and Tony Dorsett, but I know he's not the first guy to wear 33. It's just it's striking to see a tailback that's doing stuff the way Javonte is wearing TD's number.
Well, I saw Tony play in a Broncos uniform, so nothing stranger than that to me. And there have been other 33s. There are a lot of people who would like to see no running backs ever wear it, but they've had defensive backs who've worn it, and he's a much different style of runner. I'm happy for him because he's a smart kid. And look, and I'm not telling you or any of your listeners and viewers anything they don't know. He had 900 yards as a rookie as the backup running back, and he had a brilliant future. And then, like you said, he got his knee torn up. And sometimes those guys don't come back from that. Sometimes they come back in a year. Sometimes it takes two. I give credit to the Cowboys personnel department, to Will McClay in particular, who saw him, scouted him, knew they had to have a back, knew they didn't want to go spend Saquon Barkley kind of money right away. And they said, okay, we think this guy is what we're looking for. And he has been every bit of that. And I think he's a big part of why they're doing well. He's very physical. People who didn't know about him, and I don't include anybody in Denver in that because you guys knew about him. But when he was at North Carolina, he was like a mini Earl Campbell. He ran over people. He's incredibly physical. And he is kind of back to that, but he's one of the most patient runners I've ever seen. He seems to have a knack for letting his whole body wait for the seam, whether it's in the hole that the play designed or whether it turns out to be somewhere else, and then accelerate. Really good at yards after contact. And he's been they're fortunate because if they didn't have a back doing what he's doing, then their offense would not be nearly what it is. So that was a gamble that took, like Pickens, that was a gamble because everybody saw his behavior all over the league, and he hasn't been any of that. He's been the opposite of that. So those are two gambles they took that have paid off.
Yeah, and you mentioned Pickens before we get to Dak. Pickens obviously had to carry a bit of the load the last few weeks when CeeDee Lamb was out. Obviously, CeeDee came back with a bit of a vengeance the other day against our pal Von Miller and the Commanders there, and that just opens things up for Pickens and for Williams. They obviously all work together. The Broncos at least have been tested Monday night against the Bengals a few weeks back. You've got maybe the best 1A, 1B, certainly the highest paid top two receivers with Higgins and Chase, but they had Jake Browning throwing them the ball, so it wasn't the heavy lift that it was in December back in Cincy. And then right after that, they go to Philly and see A.J. Brown, who at the point was being, certainly under targeted at the very least, if you don't say underutilized, but A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. So Pat Surtain and Riley Moss in this secondary have seen this, but I would argue, especially what we saw from Pickens early last year, and he came in here with Justin Fields. He was about the only positive thing for a bad Steelers offense that still managed to beat the Broncos in week 2 last year, that he might be the best second receiver, if you will, because most teams, he wouldn't be that. And so how dynamic are they with a healthy CeeDee Lamb and with George Pickens? And I guess how much of a luxury is that for Dak?
Well, it's a huge luxury, and how dynamic they'll be. The interesting thing is, by both Schottenheimer's and Pickens' admission, and I think Prescott's also, the first couple weeks they were still feeling their way, and it was CD was clearly the number one target, and when CD had to miss a few games, then Pickens got an opportunity to move around and not play in one place, and there was a variety of things that they were able to do with him. And in fact, things that they wanted to do with him in the offense in the absence of Lamb that now makes it really almost a different Pickens than the one who was playing with Lamb before he got hurt. So, yeah, I think they're dynamic. I think the two duos that you mentioned are at the top of the heap, and I think Lamb and Pickens are right there. But the Broncos defense is really, really, really good. It's the story of the team. It's one of the great stories in the league, in my opinion. And so we'll find out how dynamic they are when they have to come into altitude and play those guys.
Yeah, and it is strength on strength when you talk about the Broncos defense, who even after giving up 32 to the Giants are still top 5 in just about every major category other than takeaways, which is something that they keep harping on, but still first in red zone, first and third down defense, first in sacks with all those guys up front led by Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper. And I think, look, if they can help eliminate what Javonte Williams does, as crazy as it sounds, the poison they'll pick will be to rely on Dak and try to get after him, just like anybody you want to pin your ears back. And you've seen Roger Staubach at the height of his powers, even a really good Danny White through his career. Of course, Troy Aikman through his Hall of Fame run, and Tony Romo, who statistically was the best quarterback that we had ever seen in Dallas. And I don't want to pretend like I've seen every Dak snap, but I've seen most of them. And this feels like the best he's playing. What do you think is the reason for that? And I guess I should ask, do you agree that this is the best you've seen Dak? Because he's played well plenty, and then, certainly ridden a roller coaster at times. Not always his fault, although some of those picks are. When you throw it to the other team, sometimes it's just your fault. Nonetheless, why do you think Dak's playing so well?
Experience, health, confidence, intelligence would be the short answer. I would push back on Romo being the best quarterback ever, and that's where statistics just lie to you. And
Sure. Okay.
Well, you said it.
Yeah,
So
I know. I'm just saying he is.
For me, those were the words that came out of your mouth, and you did say statistically. And I'm saying, if you're watching football, statistically, you'll be lied to if you just follow numbers. Romo was not playing with the same rules that even Aikman was or Staubach was. So Romo was good. Don't get me wrong. But he was not in the category of those other two guys.
Sure.
Now, I've always said since we really got to know him when he had to play kind of in an emergency in 16 in his rookie year when everybody else got hurt, including Tony, that Prescott, how good a quarterback Prescott would be determined by his career. And that will still be the case. As a leader and as a competitor and a character person, he's the equal of Staubach and Aikman, and that's the highest praise I can give anyone. Now, he is playing with a great deal of confidence. Sure, the greatest quarterbacks make mistakes, and some of the interceptions they throw are on them. And some of the interceptions that they throw are because of flawed protection or poor routes or a great defensive play. Sometimes that happens. And, I always chuckle because it just depends on whose ox is being gored. Sometimes I look at a defensive play made by the other team, and I think, okay, if that was a Dallas player who made that, then we'd be gushing. So why does the same thing not apply? If the guy made a great play, the guy made a great play. But your question was about why is Dak playing so well, and I think that it is a combination of all of those things. He's much more experienced. He's seen just about everything. He totally believes in the offense. I think that one of the greatest coach-quarterback combinations anybody's ever seen was the year Sean won the Super Bowl with the Saints, because it was like he and Drew Brees had one mind. They were of a mind meld. They could almost just look at each other from the middle of the field to the sideline and know what each other was thinking. And I think that was one of the, not to diminish either Brees as a quarterback or Sean as a coach and play caller, but the combination that they had together, it was lethal because they were just so in sync. And I'm not saying these guys are there, but I think this is the closest the Cowboys have had since it was even different when Aikman was playing with Norv Turner. A lot of things were just different. This is really two minds thinking the same things. And at this point, 10 years in, physically, Dak is in the best shape of his life, and he's really playing at a very high level. And he has now a number of playmakers around him. He has respect for the system. And one of the things that's impressive to me about Schottenheimer is he has respect for the players. You know, I did start when Landry was coaching here, and we always used to joke that Tom resented the players for getting in the way of the perfect system he devised. They were human and they couldn't do, and that was kind of a joke, but only kind of. That one of the weeks that Lamb was out, Ryan Flanoy, who's a second-year guy, you know, big, good-looking player, and he had a breakout game. I think it was against the Jets, and he had 140 yards, and so they needed another option. And so the next week when Lamb came back, I asked Prescott do you now have to kind of be aware of number 19? Do you have to know where even though the Lamb's back and also Kevontae Turpin was out for that same period of time, do you have to be aware of where he is to make sure that he's involved? And Dak didn't even pause. He said, no. It's the system. We follow the play. Every play and every call has things that are supposed to happen in it. And so I asked Schottenheimer how he felt about that answer. He said, well, I love the answer, and it's true. And then at the same time, Schottenheimer admits that he calls plays for players, not for plays. So he has a play in mind for X player against a certain defense at a certain time. So Prescott understands that and buys in, and Schottenheimer has an appreciation and a respect for the importance of what the players do and who they are. And that's one reason there's such a good combination. And it's one of the reasons Dak's having such a good year.
Yeah, it's funny because you talk about Sean Payton and Drew Brees and how good they were in 2009 when they made that run to the Super Bowl and beat Peyton Manning and the Colts. It feels like Sean wants Bo to be where Drew was, but Drew was in year 3 in that system and year 7 or 8 in the league. Right. And I get Bo's an older second-year guy, but also Sean's maybe biggest weakness that he might even admit at times is that he because he has devised such creative plays, he does sometimes overthink it and the personnel switches, and this is the right matchup for the situation. And he's probably right 9 times out of 10, but sometimes you just have to let your players go play. And so it'll be interesting to see how they attack it this week. Only got about 30 seconds to a minute. Just how do you see it playing out when you know strength on strength with offense and the Broncos defense for Cowboys offense, and then the Cowboys D not just having, the personnel that matches their offense, and the Broncos offense not clicking consistently. Certainly they've had flashes. So how do you see it playing out here? I'm not going to make you give a score by any means.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's completely unknowable because the Cowboys defense is so unpredictable. It was really wretched for the first several weeks. They made some schematic changes last week, some subtle personnel changes over the last couple of weeks. And so they are really changing as they go, and probably for the better. And ask me again in a month when they've got DeMarvion Overshown and a couple of other people back, and then it'll be different still. But that I can't even begin to answer your question, Brandon, because I don't know which Cowboys defense is going to show up. And, you mentioned all of the exciting games. Romo had a game against the Broncos at, I think it was in Arlington. That was
2013. I remember very vividly. It was when my grandma passed away. I was supposed to be at a wedding in New York. Instead, I was there 51-49, I believe. Yeah, 500 touchdowns, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 costly interception that Danny Trevathan turned into a Matt Prater game-winning field goal.
You can have a game like that if your defense is like Romo's was that year, or it looked like Prescott's was this year. So because of that unpredictability of the Dallas defense, I can't answer your question. I just know that the Broncos are giving up 18 points a game, and for the Cowboys to score the 30 or more that it appears that they need to win right now, that seems to me to be a pretty tall task. So on the day, something can change, and from Dallas's point of view, something would have to.
Well, and on the day, Sunday, when I see you in the press box, I'll happily buy you lunch and
Great.
all the sodas you want.
Yeah, thank you very much, because the Broncos are actually buying it, but that's generous of you.
Let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story. Brad, you know how much I love talking to you, and we could do this for another hour. You've got to get to Cowboys practice. I got to go get the Broncos practice, so we will chat on Sunday for sure. Thank you so much.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Brandon.
All right, so the one and only Brad Sham. You do any job for close to 50 years, means you're doing something right, and he is as good as it gets. I know talking to Dave Logan, Brad is one of his favorite play-by-play guys, and a guy whose style that I think he looked to maybe not imitate, but at least perhaps emulate, if you will. And you talked about that Tony Romo game. It is kind of coincidental that being at that 2013 game where Romo went nuts, Peyton Manning, of course, had the great naked bootleg that fooled DeMarcus Ware. Great video. You see that all the time. And I wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to be at my friend Jeff's wedding in New York, but my grandma had passed away, the same grandmother who was a Dallas real estate legend and sold Brad Sham his first house. So it was a fun way to end the show. Appreciate y'all hanging with us. I'm jealous that my man Chris Harris is in Lawrence and gets to go watch the Jayhawks play K-State tomorrow, but he won't be here Sunday, where I get to watch the Broncos, of course, play the Cowboys. So thanks for rolling with us on another Football Friday. We'll get you ready for Broncos Texans. They take on the other Texas team a week from this Sunday, but that'll be down the pike next Friday. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the help behind the scenes, especially from my man David Levine. And we will see you next week. Thanks, of course, to Chris Harris Jr., but we'll see you next time on Football Fridays.